Please welcome Amplitude Senior Customer Success Manager, Derek Johnson.
Hey guys, how we doing? My people, who has loved being back in person today. It has been that's right, give it up, give it up. It has been a long time coming, right? It's been an amazing day, and I am feeling so energized by the people in this room. I got to chat with a lot of you at the welcome reception last night and throughout the day today. Shout out to my fam over at Warner Brothers Discovery, Data Robot, Peloton. I see you guys over there, right here. Look at my eyes. Dance party time, all right, guys? All right, you guys are all awesome. So my biggest takeaway from all these conversations is, wow, the next generation of amazing product leaders are right here, right now. So thank you for sharing what you're working on, what problems you're facing, and what your goals are. It is an honor to know that Amplitude will be a very small part of your success. So with that, I am very excited to kick off our closing session for the day. We've got 3 sets of amazing speakers, and the first up are 2 people who I definitely admire. Diya Jolly, Okta's Chief Product Officer, is joining Amplitude's Chief Product Officer, Justin Bauer, who you all heard from earlier today. Diya is an absolute legend in the product world. We can credit her for really helping Okta become the identity layer for thousands of apps and websites. And before that, she was at Google, where she ran product for Google Nest and YouTube. Diya, I've got 2 little ones at home, so let's exchange numbers later and network, for some internships in about, let's say, 15 to 16 years. Diya and Justin will be talking about the journey to becoming a multi-product company, which, as many of you know, can be a bit of a tough transition. So welcome to the stage, Diya Jolly and Justin Bauer. Come on out, guys.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Diya, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me here.
Of course, yeah, no, super excited. I think this is going to be a really fun conversation for everyone here. Maybe to start, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit about what you're focused on at Okta.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, Diya Jolly, and I have been in product for the past, I think, about 20 years, done all sorts of different things, whether that's hardware, software, done big companies. Obviously, I was at Google before this, and then was the first PM at a pre-revenue, pre-customer company that got sold to Comcast. I'm currently the Chief Product Officer at Okta. At Okta, I run our product and design teams. And really, when you think about Okta, just for people that don't know, Okta is focused on providing an identity platform, whether that is for helping companies have their employees sign in securely and manage their users securely, or it is to help these companies manage their customers and have them sign in securely.
That's great. Well, I'm sure lots of things to share. The topic for today, multi-product. Okta obviously is a multi-product company. Amplitude became one last year. There's a lot of challenges that go with that. And so maybe it would be great to share for the room, what are some of the learnings that you all had? What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see companies make when they're going multi-product?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've spent a lot of time both at Google and then at Okta going through this multi-product journey, and it's a pretty precarious journey. And I think a few key mistakes that come to mind. So first, I think people kind of think of multi-product as something that the product development team has to undertake, but that's not true. The whole company has to undergo a change to become multi-product. Your sales has to sell a new product. Your customer success has to support a new product. Your marketing has to figure out how to up-level the company vision and how the products fit under it. So it really is a whole company endeavor, and if you just think of it as product development and try to do all these things right at the end when your second product is launching or post-launch, pretty often you're going to mess it up. I think the second mistake I've seen teams, and I've made myself in the past, is people go to 2 extremes. They either try to build a new product completely on its own without using any of the technology and components that they built for their first product, or they try to couple it very tightly together. In reality, you should couple the things that provide customer benefit and should be coupled together from a technological perspective, and you should keep things decoupled where it doesn't make any sense so that you can move faster. So it's always a combination, and you need a strong architect to be able to figure out what makes sense there. And then the last thing I've seen companies mess up more than once is they go multi-product because their investors are pressuring them for an increased TAM. It's the most common reason people you hear. It's the most common thing you hear from people, but it's the absolute wrong reason to go multi-product. So messing up timing can also be pretty deadly.
That's great. I think that timing one is definitely an important thing to consider.
Yeah.
And so what advice do you have for companies that are thinking about when is the right timing? Obviously, if you do it too early, you lose focus. And so how should a leadership team figure out when's the right time to go multi-product?
Yeah, I think going multi-product obviously is a big decision. From a timing perspective, definitely don't let your investors push you there. When you think about it, when you think about your core product, the way I think about it is the following, and that is, hey, how much of the market that my core product has the potential to address has it addressed, right? So how much more do I need to build on this? Do I need to build global requirements? Do I need to build requirements for certain verticals like the government or financial services or what have you? Do I need to build requirements to maybe serve a different set of customers? Sometimes a lot of products start with a focus on B2B products, start with a focus on the commercial segment, the SMB segment, and then go up. In consumer, it may be that you start with a focus on a certain age group and then want to move to other age groups, et cetera. So the more work there is to do, the less ready you are to start your second product, because you still want to be able to leverage the base you've built to be able to capture your market. And if you divert or dilute your resources too quickly, then you're not going to probably be able to win any of the markets, and you're leaving your core market open to competitors. Now, the couple of rules that I've seen where that overarching rule does not work is if you believe that the next product you're going to build actually completes a user experience, without it, it feels like your core product just isn't complete. And the example that I have from Okta there is we built single sign-on, and then we quickly realized having a single sign-on provider and a multi-factor authentication provider really just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We have to complete the journey for customers. So we built a multi-factor authentication product pretty quickly. But it was all about completing the customer journey. And then the last reason to go multi-product a little bit earlier is if it is strategic. And I'll explain this with an example. At Okta, we started with workforce identity, which is providing your employees and basically your workforce, whether they're employees or extended employees, with the ability to sign in. We quickly realized that identity really, for an organization, needs to be its own foundation. It cannot be, I have identity for employees, I have identity for my customers. It needs to be a foundation that goes across apps, that goes across your infrastructure, that goes across the type of user. And so we quickly went into customer identity. For us, was a big strategic differentiator because nobody else could provide that. And providing that whole, it didn't complete the journey, but it raised the importance of identity to a level for our customers that was just different. So I would say those are the three reasons I've seen people, those are the three reasons where I've seen people be successful or companies be successful when they move to multi-product.
That's great. Yeah, a good balance of having that broader vision, but also making sure, there are times when you really want to complete the full journey for customers. I think that's awesome. One of the other challenges, I think, is about then your primary product, your first product, making sure you're still investing within that. It's not seen as a second-class citizen. Have you thought about how to make sure there's the right prioritization, how you organize teams around the core?
Yeah, that's a great question. So usually, what I have noticed, and not every company subscribes to this, but usually what I've noticed is when you're a single product, your teams are really organized by what I would call components. So you'd have someone running the UI, you'd have someone running your logging, you'd have someone running some parts of the core server, et cetera. When you go to multi-product, you sort of have to change your team structure in product development at least. And different sales teams have different philosophies. But when you go to multi-product, the way you want to think about this is the stuff that's common, and I would say 30, 40% that's common, should become a platform team. And you should always have that platform team that serves both or all your products. And then you should have product teams that are independent and can run separately. What happens if you do that is A, you reduce the surface area of prioritization because this is the 30-40% of things. And B, you also then can control prioritization more at the top level by allocating resources. So you could say 50% goes to my core, 30% goes to my second product, 20% goes, or 15% goes to my third product, and 5% goes to incubation. And then layer that on with, there's no hard and fast rule that each of the product teams have to wait for the platform. If they need to get to market faster, the smaller they are, they can build something that can eventually get taken on by the platform team if it's beneficial to everyone else. And that's how I've found, which is, if you try to keep making prioritizations at the global level, it gets really too hard and complicated. So you have to have, I am a big fan of Jeff Bezos's two pizza teams and giving them a mission and having them run, and so organizing the teams based on that.
That's great. So that then speaks to some of the challenges of moving to a platform team. There's a ton of challenges there as well. And so what are some of the best practices that you've learned with that?
That's a good question. I think platform has become the hot thing recently in the industry, and everybody wants to be a platform, and everyone is a platform. But I think there are both benefits, but there's also, there are pros and cons to moving to a platform. And I don't think a platform works for every product or every company. If you're a company that is going to complete an end-to-end experience for your customer, so I was talking to a company that is building software for dentist offices. They're going to complete the whole experience. It's not, I mean, they don't need to plug into many things. They don't have too many different types of products that need to interact with each other, et cetera. You can go build a product. I don't know if you want to take the time to abstract away and build services that can work in different situations that different people can write to, that need to make and take the time to be a platform. On the other hand, I think if you find that there are a couple of reasons that I think are compelling to go to a platform. Number one, if you find that your product or your different products have somewhat similar use cases, or have similar use cases but not quite. So I'll give an example. Multi-factor authentication for us, again, going back, from doing multi-factor authentication for an employee and doing multi-factor authentication for a customer of our customer is not that different. There are some differences. You have to customize the app that they use for multi-factor authentication if it's a customer's customer. But the underlying technology is about 70% the same. And so that's something, even though these are two separate products, you want to pull into a platform so that you don't have to keep repeatedly developing the same thing. So that's one place where I think you should think about moving to a platform. I think the second area is, if the use cases you're addressing are so broad and continuously changing, then you want to implement in a way that is more abstract so that you can continue to build on it. You want to build the abstract components or concepts as a service, and then you want to keep building on top of them, and being able to modify them. For us, identity has a bunch of different use cases, and so for us to build a product was hard. Yesterday there was passwords. Today there is biometrics. Tomorrow there will be something else. So if we had built a product and hardcoded and said you always need a password, that would slow down our innovation. We had to say you will have something called an authenticator and then you could change the definition of an authenticator based on how technology evolved. And how the use cases evolved. That's the second use case, and then I think the third use case is if you want other people to build on you, right? Because oftentimes many companies need other people to complete the journey in some unique context, whether it's a specific use case for a specific industry, or it's an adjacent product that they'll never get into because for them the TAM isn't big enough, et cetera.
That's great. Yeah, lots of great reasons. You've also built both product for B2C as well as B2B. And so I think you have a unique perspective. I'm wondering what's different between the two, what's the same, and what's different?
That's a great question. I actually think I am firmly a B2B person now. I think you need, it's funny, I was talking to someone, a colleague of mine, and he's like, I think you need to be younger to be in B2C. I don't know if that's true, but that's what that was that person's opinion. But no, I think differences in building B2C and B2B. I think in B2B, you can actually gather a ton more data on whether your hypothesis and your product intuition of what the product or the feature, et cetera, is correct or not before ever writing a line of code. Because I think your customers are more clustered and more segmented and smaller and more reachable. In consumer, you can talk to 5 consumers, you can talk to 20 consumers, but the diversity is so much, even if you say, I'm just going to target moms, let's say. The diversity is so much that it's super hard to do that. So in consumer, you actually have to throw something out there and iterate and collect the data, and data makes a lot more difference in refining your hypothesis and getting to a proper product. So that's one thing. I think the second thing is, in consumer, the pressure to start seeing revenue does not kick in till much later. There's a kind of belief in consumer that if you get the adoption and the engagement, which is what everyone focuses on, you will figure out a way to make money. It hasn't always turned out to be true, but it has turned out to be true quite a bit, and it's almost a principle at this point. In B2B, I think that even with all the PLG motions and everything, proving that that business will pay and doing it relatively early in the life cycle of the business actually is a pretty important thing. So let's take startups. Consumer startups will get funded and can be Series E and F without any revenue. There's no way a B2B startup can. And I think those are 2 really big things I think that are different.
That's great. One of the things that you mentioned about B2B I definitely agree with is, you can really segment your customer base, talk to them, get to know them, build a lot of intuition there. I'm wondering, going back to the platform approach, does you see that actually change if you're building a platform for other teams? Like, how do you think about serving customers where now they're building on top of you for maybe a number of different use cases?
That's a fantastic question. I don't think it changes with a platform, because even when building a platform, you need to have an understanding of 2 to 3 core use cases, right? And from there, you abstract. So going back to my example of the password, we had the password, but we also had MFA that could act as a factor. So we had 2 or 3 factors, and then I think the lens you need to apply to it in a platform, when you build a platform as well, which pieces of this would change over the future, so which pieces of this do I need to abstract? But I think that core, building that empathy, building that understanding of what the customer is trying to do, and building and understanding those use cases, I don't think changes.
That's great. Let's end it on a fun one. So I'm sure many people here can relate to this, but I'm sure it's not the case at Okta. But engineering product teams don't always get along. And so, what's your best advice for maintaining that relationship between those 2 teams?
Yeah. I actually think Google, where I worked previously, it was a really good training ground for this. And they perfected a method, and they called it a 2-in-a-box method. So you basically ensure that the metrics that engineering and product are responsible for are joint and aligned. And if you do that, I think it creates a lot more synergy. So if you say, hey, is product responsible for defining the right product, and engineering is responsible for delivering it, I think that causes a chasm. If you turn that around and say, as the leader of the organization, whether that's you and your CTO, or whether that's the CEO of the company, no, you both are responsible for ensuring this is the customer adoption, and this is the revenue, or this is the engagement, and that's what I care about. Then you start having a broader view, both within engineering and product. And so one of the rules, I work for this really phenomenal guy, and one of his rules was like, you both are not going to come to me and tell me the other person is doing something wrong, or that the other person is failing. You're going to come to me jointly if something is wrong and you both cannot solve it jointly. And so I think that culture is pretty important, and that tone needs to be set from the top. That doesn't mean that if one side is not carrying their weight, and truly not carrying their weight, I think eventually that will show. But that is what I think the culture needs to be from the top.
That's great. I love it. Align around outcomes. At the end of the day, we're all partnering together to make that happen. So super powerful. Well, thank you, Diya, for joining us. Some amazing insights for everyone here. So yeah, we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here.